All right, much better. Sorry about the noise here for a second. Essentially what I'm going to do is work through a series of burrs. So this one here is our sintered wheel. We're going to use that to cut off the sprue. I am then going to use my favorite burr. Looks like this. I believe it's an S805018 sintered as well. Oh no, I'm reading you the wrong number. What it is actually is an 863116 burr. I just like that it's nice and flat. I can really contour it by moving my hand around. And then I will finish off with one of the polishing wheels. You can use the medium, you can use the fine. I like the fine right now, but I switch to go back and forth. So essentially this one here actually that I'm showing you is the fine, but there's a coarse one, and I have medium ones as well. And I essentially get that sprue nice and flat, which I'll be showing you and talking to you as we go. I'll also use my micro etcher, which is right here. It has aluminum oxide in it, and just to create some sort of retentive surface now before we sinter it. So without further ado, I'll get started in showing you how I work. Just going to remove the burr I was using last time. I'm going to get that sintered wheel. Get this in. Lock it off by twisting it. And we'll get going. I'm just turning up the RPMs as much as possible, so when I cut here, there's less vibration, and I just want to go nice and easily when I get to the actual tooth, and that'll just help reduce any fractures. I'm pushing the top of that sintered wheel up against the material, so I know I'm not cutting into the crown. Stop it here so I can show you quickly. Once I'm almost all the way through, that's perfect. You can see I'm almost all the way through. What I'll do now is just hold the crown and just put a little bit of downward pressure. It'll snap off. And that's the sprue now I have to get rid of. So we'll move on to that stage. I'll take these away from here just for now, and we'll go back into this kind of dust box here, and we'll get that little piece taken care of. So I'll switch burrs again now. So I typically will switch to my diamond. I'm using the diamond burr. See if we can get that to focus a bit better. And you're going to round up the edges. It's funny, I'm working around a bipod right now, so I'm not as accurate as I usually am, but we'll make sure this looks nice before we get rid of it. So I typically will cut a little cross into it just to, again, reduce vibration. You can see the sprue there, hopefully. And that's exactly what you don't really want to happen. If that ever happens, just take a look at your margins, make sure nothing is chipped. We're okay still. Let's keep working away. Small pieces here, staying away from the margins. The sprue is actually very close to this margin because the crown prep is not all the way down, so we just have to be super careful. Looking good. I'm going to flip this around and do the same to this side. I find the trick with this type of stuff is just going nice and slow. If you rush it, what will happen is you'll end up taking off too much material. You have to remill your crown. So now that the margin's more or less gone, I'm just going to round out the surface a little bit here. And we use the buckle so that way the patient doesn't feel that on their tooth, the roughness. We're going to polish it out, but there's always a chance that it's going to be a little bit more rough than the mechanical finish from the prime mill. So now what I'll do is I'll take I'm going to use a fine wheel for this one. If there's a little bit more material to get off, I would have used medium. But fine for this one, since there's no material left, and I'm just going to essentially long strokes, hardly touching, and I'm just going over the crown and smoothing that all out. And I'll tack high spots. I actually made a high spot here with the polishing wheel, so just removing it. So it feels nice, and just getting rid of those margins. Getting rid of those high spots. My margin still looks good. I didn't chip it by dropping it, which is perfect. It could use a bit more refining, but I don't want to change the contour of the tooth. So over here. So this is the side I was working on. So there's a couple little dips, but this will shrink to about 1/3 the size of the green material. So that's good for this purpose here. My next task is to use my micro etcher inside here because there's a lot of dust. I'm going to etch the bottom. And I just do a little bit. Don't want to do too much because it'll eat away at the material. And then what I'll do is I'll actually tip this, but I'll unscrew the aluminum oxide. And I'll spray the micro etcher inside the machine here. Get rid of any extra dust. And now essentially what I have is just compressed air. And you can see the dust coming off of it. I spray with compressed air just to get any loose debris off before we sinter. It'll show up as a chalky white if you haven't done this. I'll turn that off for a moment while I grab my brush. On the left hand side of me here there is this. It's just a natural hairbrush from Michaels, and I just use this to get rid of any remaining dust on and around the crown. So we're almost complete with this part, so that's looking really good. Dust off my fingers a little bit too. And there is my green state crown, which we will now turn into we'll sinter it and turn it into a regular zirconia crown. So I'm just going to put this down here for one moment. I'm going to put the camera up and I'll just show you what we're doing now. Zoom you out here. So the next part is to come over to our screen. So remove the block. Once we shut the door, it'll upload the name to the Speedfire, which is Dentist Supply Sirona's equivalent of a kiln or a furnace or whatever you're firing your crowns in. But it's all automated, so you don't have to do anything other than click on the name for this. So it knows what material you used, and it's displayed it on the screen here. So I'm just going to click on the one we just did. We're going to go, if you can see those options here. I know that light's a little bit in the way, but essentially we're going to hit sintering, which is the middle. If the crown gets wet for any reason, you have to pre-dry it before sintering it, or it'll explode in the kiln. So you can do them both together, but I'm just going to do sintering. It's perfectly dry. We didn't put any water. Our hands weren't wet. We had the gloves on, so there's nothing wet on our hands that could touch the crown. So we're going to go straight to sintering. When you push the button, it will drop out the wedding cake, as we call it, but it's just essentially insulative material. It'll also show us a picture, and nice and close there, of how it wants you to position the crown, which is, for sintering, always the cusps are down. And when that's on, all we need to do is hit the play button. It tells us the time it'll take. Time fluctuates a little bit, but it's pretty accurate. And this will now go into the furnace here and will be fired. It has a temperature reading on the top, which is important to note when it comes out. I'll make another video and I'll show you how to be careful and remove it from there, and next steps.